Hello, everyone. This is part 5 of JonBenét, the final chapter. My name is Marcel Elvers, Master Profiler through Written Communication and Questioned Document Examiner. I use handwriting analysis, statement analysis, and behavioral trend analysis. What we have learned so far in part 1 through 4, and I advise you to have a look at them, that JonBenét was not made a priority in the investigation, at least not by the parents. The ransom note was written inside the home and specifically after JonBenét's death. We also know through handwriting comparison analysis and word selection that Patsy wrote the ransom note, and the note showed that it was written by an inept criminal matching Patsy. We also saw that there was no foreign faction, in fact. So in my upcoming book, JonBenét, the final chapter, I will show in detail how we come to all those conclusions. It will come out soon. Today I'm going to pay attention and show proof that there was no pedophile ring either. So we're going to put that theory to rest. You see, the most authoritative account of the case is Steve Thomas's book, JonBenét Inside the Ramsey Murder Investigation. Steve Thomas was the leading detective on the case, and he became so frustrated in the end that he resigned. On page 263, he wrote, "When we checked the photos, a picture showed a dictionary on a coffee table, and the corner of the lower left page was sharply creased and pointing like an arrow to the word incest. Somebody had been looking up for a definition of sexual contact between family members. The dots reflect on me taking unnecessary words out. But somebody was looking up the definition of sexual contact between family members. Incest. The crease was sharp and it looked fresh. Now, if you look up the definition of incest, and that's between family members, that excludes any outsider. Now, it was Christmas, and one would expect that if you look up the word incest for the definition, that you would close the dictionary and place it back, even if you look it up a week prior to Christmas, because you don't want your children to have a look at the dictionary and find out about the word incest. And on Christmas, you don't want any unexpected visitors to see that. So a logical conclusion is that the dictionary was looked up recently and left open in haste and in a panic state. Looking up the word incest, it not only excludes any outsider, it's also an admission of involvement by a family member. So something happened that night, and it was linked to incest. Now, there are 3 people left in the home: John, Patsy, and Burke, and of course, JonBenét, who was likely passed away already. So incest is therefore the likely motive for writing the note in the first place. And we know this already. Patsy wrote the note, and it explains the length of the note, Patsy coercing John, the disguised writing, and the ineptness of the ransom note as a whole, as well as the intimacy parts within the note, and the unwanted advice. Let's have a quick look at that. 2.5 pages. The Ramsey case is the only case we know of that has a 2.5 page rambling ransom note. Patsy was coercing John. We can see that John had to listen carefully and not talk about your situation, that is Mr. Ramsey's situation. And in the end, it was up to John to decide how to move forward. Deception was a big part of the Ramsey strategy. There were prime marks at the back door, and on the same page, 263 of Steve Thomas's book, he explains that the Ramseys made a big fuss about that because that is where the intruder would have come in. But a witness came forward and pointed out that, and said that she pointed out these very marks to Patsy months before the murder. So the Ramseys knew that all along. So deception was willful and deliberate. And that pattern of deception is consistent with the disguised handwriting or the attempt to disguise the handwriting. A non-dominant hand was used, the changing of the letter A, the deliberate misspellings, but also the ineptness of the change in reality. Change in reality happens when you change a word. We do respect your business, but not the earlier delivery of your child. I meant pickup. And also the gentleman watching over your daughter do not particularly like you, where not was added later. So this is clearly somebody that did not experience the actual kidnapping. The storyline is fabricated. The unwanted advice, the delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be arrested. Now, I always say this, and this is a very important rule. People always talk about that, what is important to them. Don't ask yourself, why even mention this? Ask yourself, why was this important enough to mention? And from the kidnapper's perspective, it makes no sense to advise sleeping parents to rest while you're writing it in the home after the child's demise. And that basically is an admission of guilt, an admission of involvement in Patsy's own handwriting and words. There's also intimacy details in the note. Mr. Ramsey was addressed, kind of official language, but in the end, the last paragraph, Mr. Ramsey changed to the more intimate John. And what about you will withdraw $118,000? It's interesting because that was also the deferred pay for John. And why would a kidnapper care where the money came from? From your account. Number one, how does the kidnapper know it is in his account? And why does that even matter? And how does the kidnapper know it was actually in his account? Intimacy details are also, we respect your business. It's complementing John's business. But then again, but not the country it serves. That is not only illogical, it also questions, why do you select Mr. Ramsey as your target? Because it is a shift to a country. If you don't like the country, there's plenty of people you may not respect in that country. So why not kidnap a child of a policymaker? Somebody that actually rules the country, like a politician. And there are elements of alibi building. The advice to bring an adequate size attaché to the bank. Remember, don't ask yourself why even mention that. Ask yourself, why was this important enough to mention? And that might be alibi building. I suspect it is alibi building because I think that they were planning to bring JonBenét's body outside the home, probably in a suitcase. So if he was seen by outsiders walking around with the big case, that had to be explained. Same with the brown paper bag. You will put the money in a brown paper bag. That doesn't make sense at first sight, but if you look at it from alibi building, the duct tape rope, part of the rope, and the broken paintbrush were not found. And it is entirely possible these were put in a brown paper bag and disposed of. It's alibi building, just in case somebody saw them. So in sum, Patsy wrote a note. The logical motive is to cover up the murder and incest. The question now is, what happened that night? So follow me for updates on the JonBenét, the final chapter. My book is coming out soon. And please like, share, and subscribe.